Good day, friends. We'll discuss about the provisions of updated return in this video. These provisions have been inserted by the Finance Act 2022 and a new subsection 8A has been inserted in section 139. Section 139, as we know, deals with the provisions regarding furnishing of return of income. This is a new provision and hence it's important in respect of the upcoming examinations. And there is a likelihood that questions may be asked in this respect. So before we discuss the provisions of furnishing of updated return, let's take a look at few points which are relevant in this context. So as we know, section 139 deals with furnishing of return of income, and three subsections which are relevant in this context for us are subsection 1, 4 and 5. So 139.1 deals with furnishing of regular return of income, which is the normal return of income. And we know that if certain conditions are satisfied, then the person is required to furnish a regular return of income by the due date stipulated under this provision, which can either be 31st of July or 31st of October or 30th of November, depending on the category in which the taxpayer falls. If the person fails to furnish the return under section 139.1, then there is a provision under 139.4 to furnish a belated return of income. And the last date to furnish the belated return of income as per these provisions is 31st of December, basically, of the assessment year. Right? After 31st of December, belated return of income cannot be furnished. Then there is a provision under 139.5 which provides for furnishing of revised return of income. If the taxpayer discovers an omission or incorrect particulars furnished in the original return of income, then he can revise the return and furnish a revised return of income. And the last date for furnishing revised return of income is also 31st of December, which is the same as that for furnishing of belated return of income. So if you note from this overview that the first timeline is the timeline to furnish regular return of income, which can either be 31st of July or 31st of October or 30th of November. If the taxpayer by any chance fails to furnish a return within these timelines, then he can furnish a belated return of income by 31st of December. If the taxpayer has already furnished a return of income, whether it be under 139.1 or 139.4, that means whether it be regular or a belated return of income, then he can also revise that return, and this can also be done till 31st of December. The effect of these provisions is that the return cannot be filed after 31st of December. The return cannot be filed after 31st of December. Now, the scheme has been provided in section 139.8A to furnish an updated return of income. And the logic is to provide an enhanced time frame for the taxpayers to furnish a return of income. There may be cases where the taxpayer may have furnished a return of income by 31st of December, whether it be a regular return or a belated return or a revised return, and the taxpayer now finds that he missed out some particulars or he wants to revise the quantum and the particulars of income, and therefore he wants to update that return. In that case, till now the taxpayer is not allowed to furnish a return after 31st of December. And that may create difficulty if the taxpayer realizes that he needs to furnish an updated return after 31st of December, because there is no provision as of now to do that. Similarly, the taxpayer may completely forget to furnish a return by 31st of December, or he may not be aware that he is required to furnish a return of income. In such case, he will be left with no option but to live without furnishing of return of income if he doesn't do that by 31st of December, because he is not allowed to furnish a return after 31st of December. In such cases, the taxpayer has now been given an option to furnish an updated return even after the period of 31st of December. So this creates a win-win situation for the government as well as the taxpayer. The benefit for the taxpayer is that he gets a chance to voluntarily comply with the provisions of the Act by furnishing a return of income and declaring his particulars of income and paying tax thereon, right? If by chance he missed to furnish the return as per the regular provisions, then he still now gets an option to furnish an updated return of income for an extended period of time beyond 31st of December. And this helps the government because it gets more tax revenue for the government. And on an overall basis, it helps in a better compliance management as far as the tax provisions are concerned. So let's take a look at the provisions now. Updated return. So any person, whether it be individual or HUF or firm or LLP or company, that means any person is allowed to furnish an updated return. Any person may means that furnishing of updated return is not compulsory, it is optional. So any person may furnish an updated return of income for an assessment year. That means it can be any assessment year. A particular assessment year has not been specified. For an assessment year in Form U. So Form U has been prescribed for this purpose, and this needs to be furnished in the prescribed manner. Okay. So any person may furnish an updated return of income. Return of income can be furnished. That means return of loss cannot be furnished under 139(8)(a). It needs to be a return of income for an assessment year in Form U in the prescribed manner, right? Updated return can be furnished whether or not the person has furnished a regular return or a belated return or a revised return. It doesn't matter whether the taxpayer has already furnished a return. If the taxpayer has furnished a return, whether it be a regular or a belated or a revised return, even then he can update the return, and that will be called an updated return, and that can be furnished after 31st December of the assessment year. Similarly, even if the taxpayer has not furnished any kind of return, even then the taxpayer can furnish an updated return, though the word updated means that the taxpayer should have furnished some return and now he is updating the return, but it is not really necessary. The word is updated return, but an updated return will be called where a taxpayer furnishes the return for the first time under section 139(8)(a). That means if he has not furnished a return before and he is furnishing the return for the first time after 31st of December, then also he can do that, and it will be called an updated return. Though he is not updating anything, it is the first return that he is filing. Okay, so an updated return can be furnished whether or not the person has furnished an earlier return, whether it be a regular or a belated or a revised return of income. There is a timeline which has been provided because things cannot go endlessly, so there is a cap in terms of time within which the taxpayer needs to furnish the updated return. So updated return can be furnished at any time within 24 months from the end of the relevant assessment year. For example, if the previous year is 2022-23, that means the assessment year would be 2023-24. The updated return in this particular case can be furnished till what time? It can be furnished till 31st of March 2026. So 2 years are available from 31st of March 2024. Okay, so this is the time limit. After 31st of March 2026, updated return cannot be furnished with respect to assessment year 23-24. So this is an example. Certain exclusions have been provided. The provisions of updated return do not apply in the following cases. So that means that updated return cannot be furnished in these cases. In 3 cases, 3 situations have been provided for. And what is the objective of providing these exclusions? The objective is to basically ensure that furnishing of updated return doesn't result in a loss of tax revenue for the government. Because the whole idea of providing the scheme for updated return is to create a win-win for the taxpayer and the government. The idea is that the furnishing of updated return should bring in enhanced tax revenues to the government and at the same time provide an opportunity to the taxpayer to ensure voluntary tax compliance. So if the taxpayer fails to furnish a return as per the existing provisions by 31st of December, the government has provided an exceptional extended window for another 2 years. But there is a condition that such furnishing cannot result in a reduction of tax revenue for the government. The taxpayer cannot take advantage of that extended timeline to reduce his tax liability and create a revenue loss for the government. This is the idea behind it. So the objective of these exclusions is to prevent a situation where furnishing of updated return results in loss or reduction of tax revenue to the government, right? So the government is willing to provide extra time to the taxpayer to furnish an updated return, but it doesn't want to lose out on its tax revenue on account of this provision. So this position is reflected in these exclusions. So there are three exclusions basically. The first one, the provisions of updated return do not apply if the updated return is a return of a loss for the relevant assessment year. That means a return of loss cannot be furnished after, it cannot be furnished as an updated return under 139(8)(a). So for example, if the taxpayer has earlier furnished a return of income and then he realizes that, okay, there is a loss and now he needs to furnish a return of loss. So he cannot update his return under 139(8)(a). So return of loss cannot be furnished under 139(8)(a) because it will then result in a tax revenue loss for the government. Point number 2, the provisions of updated return do not apply if the updated return has the effect of decreasing the total tax liability determined on the basis of return furnished under 139(1), 4 or 5. That means if the tax liability on the basis of the earlier return, that means the regular return or the belated return or the revised return decreases as a result of furnishing of updated return, then such updated return cannot be filed because it then will result in a loss of tax revenue to the government. So for example, if the taxpayer has filed say a belated return declaring total income where the tax liability is say 10,000 rupees, okay, and he realizes that he has declared more income than the correct level of income, and now he wants to reduce the amount of income, with the result that his tax liability will also get reduced to say for example 8,000 rupees, right? So since the total tax liability is getting reduced, that means now this cannot be done under 139(8)(a). So the taxpayer cannot furnish an updated return because the total tax liability determined on the basis of the belated return in our example will go down as a result of furnishing of updated return. This is not allowed. Point number 3. If the updated return results in a refund or increases the refund due, then also updated return cannot be filed. Okay. For example, in our case, okay, let's take another example. If the taxpayer say furnished the regular return, okay, claiming a refund of say 5,000 rupees, and he now realizes that he had declared extra income which was not supposed to be declared because it was incorrect, and now he wants to update and file a correct return of income whereby he will now decrease his total income, and consequently that will result in a lower tax liability, and therefore he will now claim a tax refund of say 7,000 rupees. So the refund will increase. Since the refund will increase, he cannot file updated return. Similarly, if there was a tax due as per the original return, there was a tax payable of 5,000 rupees, but now on account of declaring some loss or on account of reducing the level of income, he actually will now be claiming a refund, right? Instead of paying the tax, instead of tax payable, the return will now result in a refund due. In that case also, the updated return cannot be filed. So number 1, 2, 3. Number 1 was A taxpayer cannot furnish a return of loss under 139(8)(a). Number 2, the taxpayer cannot decrease his total tax liability by virtue of furnishing updated return. Okay. And point number 3, the taxpayer cannot furnish a updated return where it results in a refund or where it increases the refund due. So the whole idea behind these 3 exclusions is to ensure that the government doesn't lose out on its tax revenue. Its tax revenue must increase on account of furnishing of updated return, because it is an exception in terms of an extended time window which now the government is providing to the taxpayer. And taxpayer, having first failed to furnish the return within the existing timeline of 31st December, cannot now take advantage of the extended timeline to make good his or her error or omission. So this is the whole idea. There are 3 situations where the taxpayer is ineligible to furnish updated return. What do the provisions say? An updated return cannot be furnished by a person for the relevant assessment year in the following cases. And again, 3 situations have been provided, and the idea of these 3 situations, the objective is to achieve a closure, right? The objective is to ensure that the proceedings don't go on endlessly. So to achieve a closure to the proceedings, these 3 situations are provided for. Let's take a look. Point number 1, an updated return cannot be furnished where an updated return has been furnished by him for the relevant assessment year. It means that once a taxpayer has furnished an updated return, he cannot again update that updated return, right? Because otherwise, the taxpayer may go on updating the return. He may keep on realizing his errors and omissions and mistakes, and this will not bring a quick closure to the proceedings. So that means updated return can only be furnished once. Point number 2, an updated return cannot be furnished where any proceeding for assessment or reassessment or recomputation or revision of income under the Act is pending or has been completed for the relevant assessment year. Okay. So sometimes when you file the return of income, when the taxpayer files the return of income, the assessing officer may initiate the proceedings of assessment, whereby he will make some inquiries, etc., and follow a due process of law, and then finally determine the amount of income and the amount of tax payable or refundable. So that is the process of assessment. And then there are procedures with relation to reassessment, recomputation, and revision also provided under the Act. Now, if the assessment proceedings are pending or they have been completed, then the taxpayer is not allowed to furnish an updated return, because otherwise the whole process will restart. So the closure will not be achieved. So to achieve a closure to the whole process, it's provided that once the assessment proceedings are pending, that means once the assessing officer initiates the assessment proceedings or any of these proceedings which have been mentioned here, right, then updated return cannot be filed. So updated return can be furnished only till the assessment proceedings have not been initiated by the department. Lastly, point number 3, an updated return cannot be furnished where the taxpayer is such person or belongs to such class of persons as may be notified. So the government may notify a person or a class of persons who will not be allowed to furnish a updated return under 139(8)(a). No such notification has been issued so far, but a notification may be issued in due course of time. There are some other cases as well, like in case of search, survey, etc., in which case updated return cannot be filed, but these provisions are basically not within the purview of the CA Intermediate syllabus, and therefore we are not going to discuss these in this video. Now there are 2 points regarding loss. Okay, let's see. So earlier what we have seen is the updated return. See, in exclusions, point number 1, we saw that the provision of updated return do not apply where updated return is a return of loss. So a return of loss cannot be furnished under 139(8)(a). Return of income can be furnished, return of loss cannot be furnished. This is what we have noted so far. But if any person has sustained a loss in any previous year, right? So there has been a loss in any previous year and the person has furnished a return of loss. So return of loss, you would remember we had studied in the chapter on carry forward and set off of losses. Certain losses cannot be carried forward. For example, business loss cannot be carried forward unless the taxpayer has determined such loss pursuant to a return of loss filed under section 139(3), and such return needs to be filed within the time allowed under 139(1). That is called a return of loss. That allows the taxpayer to carry forward the loss. Okay, so what we are saying here is, if any person has sustained a loss in any previous year and he has furnished a return of loss within the time allowed under 139(1), then he can furnish an updated return under 139(8)(a). But what is the condition? Updated return can be furnished where such updated return is a return of income, not a return of loss. As we have earlier discussed, return of loss cannot be furnished under 139(8)(a). But what happens if the return of loss was furnished earlier within the time allowed under 139(1), and then the taxpayer wants to update the particulars? He can furnish an updated return, but that updated return needs to be a return of income, not a return of loss. Okay. So if the taxpayer had a loss of 1 lakh rupees as per the regular return of income furnished under 139(1), and he later on wants to update the return because he realizes that there has been a mistake in the particulars furnished in that return of income, and actually instead of loss of 1 lakh it should have been a positive income of 1 lakh, for example, on which tax is actually payable. Then in that case it will be a return of income, and then this return can be updated under 139(8)(a). Second point regarding losses is, see what they are saying, if the loss or any part thereof, loss or any part thereof, 1, or unabsorbed depreciation, if the loss or unabsorbed depreciation, 2, or AMT tax credit, 3, which is carried forward, is to be reduced for any subsequent previous year as a result of furnishing of updated return of income for a previous year, an updated return is required to be furnished for each such subsequent year. So that means there is a loss, for example, which is carried forward because it could not be absorbed in that year, and it is carried forward to the subsequent previous year, and in the year in which the loss was incurred, the taxpayer wants to file an updated return, because of which obviously the loss will not be increased, right? The loss may, for example, be wiped off. So what will happen? The loss which was carried forward to the next year may become zero or may get reduced. So consequently, the return for the subsequent previous year will also need to be updated to reflect this change, right? So this is the effect of the provision. So just we'll take a quick look at an example. So for example, this is year 1 and this is year 2. Okay. And say there was a business loss of 1 lakh. Okay. And this loss cannot be absorbed in year 1. So this loss needs to be carried forward to year 2. And in year 2, there is an income of 2 lakh, and this loss of 1 lakh gets absorbed, with the result that the net income for year 2 becomes 1 lakh. Now the taxpayer, realizes that there is an extra income which was missed to be declared in this original return, and that was the income, business income of 2 lakh rupees. So now when he declares the additional income of 2 lakh rupees, this 1 lakh rupees loss will get set off against this extra income of 2 lakh rupees, with the result that the net income from business will be 1 lakh rupees in year 1, and consequently there will not be any requirement to carry forward this loss to year 2, which was done previously. And therefore, the particulars of return declared for year 2 will also need to undergo a change, and consequently an updated return will need to be furnished not only for year 1 but also for year 2. This is the effect of this particular provision. Certain points to note: furnishing of updated return is optional, it is not compulsory, right? Second point, updated return can be furnished by any person, be it an individual, HUF, firm, company, etc., irrespective of the residential status of the person, may be a resident or non-resident, ROR or RNOR. Every person is allowed to furnish an updated return as per the provisions of 139(8)(a). Provisions of section 140B. So section 140B has been inserted to provide for computation of tax which is supposed to be paid upon furnishing of updated return. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. Determine whether updated return can be furnished by Mr. Z in the following situations. Situation 1. Mr. Z, a non-resident, missed to furnish his return of income for the assessment year 21-22. He now wishes to furnish the return of income on 15 December 2023. Can updated return be furnished in this case? Yes, updated return can be furnished because any person can furnish. Even though Mr. Z is a non-resident, it doesn't matter. Mr. Z can furnish updated return whether or not he has furnished an earlier return. So he has not furnished an earlier return, he missed to furnish his return, but he can furnish an updated return under 139(8)(a), and this can be furnished within 24 months from the end of assessment year 21-22, that means till 31st March 2024. Situation 2. Mr. Z, a resident, furnished his regular return under 139(1) for the assessment year 2022-23 on the due date of 31st July 2022, and thereafter he furnished a revised return under 139(5) on 15 December 2022. He wants to furnish an updated return to offer additional income of 1 lakh. So Mr. Z, he furnished a regular return and then he furnished a revised return, and now he wants to furnish an updated return because he missed to offer an income of 1 lakh in the earlier returns. So can he furnish an updated return? He can furnish the updated return within 24 months from the end of AY 22-23, that means till 31st March 2025, and declare the additional income of rupees 1 lakh in such return. Okay. Number 3. Mr. Z failed to furnish the return for AY 22-23. Right? He failed to furnish the return for AY 22-23. And now he wants to furnish an updated return for the said assessment year on 20th November 2023, declaring a loss of rupees 2 lakh to be carried forward to assessment year 23-24. So Mr. Z failed to furnish the return for AY 22-23. 31st December 2022 was the last date under 139(4) for belated return, and he failed to furnish. Now he wants to furnish an updated return on 20th November 2023, and he wants to declare of loss of rupees 2 lakh to be carried forward to assessment year 23-24. Right? So can he furnish an updated return? No. Provisions of updated return do not apply where the updated return is a return of loss, because he wants to declare a loss of rupees 2 lakh, which will be a return of loss, which cannot be furnished under 139(8)(a). Situation 4. Mr. Z furnished a belated return for AY 21-22 on 10 December 2021, declaring a total income of 6 lakh and tax liability of 33,800. He wants to furnish an updated return on 15th November 2023, reducing the total income to rupees 5.5 lakh and tax liability to rupees 23,400. So he wants to reduce his total income and consequently his tax liability from 33,800 to 23,400. Can he file an updated return? Provisions of updated return do not apply where the updated return has the effect of decreasing the total tax liability as per the earlier return, and therefore in this case Mr. Z cannot furnish updated return under 139(8)(a). Number 5. Mr. Z of age 35 years furnished his return for AY 2022-23 on 15th September 2022, declaring total income of rupees 6 lakh and tax liability of 33,800 and claimed a refund of rupees 1,200 after adjusting prepaid taxes of rupees 35,000. Okay, so he declared total income of 6 lakh and the tax liability came to 33,800. However, he had prepaid taxes which could be in the form of TDS or TCS or advance tax of 35,000. So prepaid taxes were more than 33,800 and therefore he claimed a refund of 1,200. Now he wants to furnish an updated return on 31st March 2025, declaring additional income of 1 lakh. So it's good, he is declaring additional income. And prepaid taxes of rupees 30,000. These were missed to be declared in the earlier return. So he had missed to declare prepaid taxes of 30,000 and he has also missed to declare additional income of 1 lakh. So now he will declare all of these in the updated return because he missed to declare these in the earlier return. Now what will happen? Tax refundable as per the updated return. So there will still be a tax refund as per the updated return. So the refund of 1,200 was claimed earlier, but now let's look what will be the position as per the updated return. So tax refundable as per updated return will be what? So the total income will be 6 lakh plus 1 lakh which he wants to now declare. So it will be 7 lakh. So tax liability on 7 lakh will be 54,600. Earlier it was 33,800. Now it will become 54,600. Minus prepaid taxes will now be 65,000. 35,000 and 30,000 which will be 65,000. And therefore now the net tax refund will be rupees 10,400. So what is happening? The earlier tax refund claim was 1,200 and as per the updated return now his tax refund will rise to 10,400 which is not allowed. Provisions of updated return do not apply since updated return increases the refund due. Since the refund due will increase under 139(8)(a), updated return cannot be furnished. Number 6. Mr. Z furnished his return for AY 21-22 on 31st of July 21, claiming a refund of 20,000 after adjusting prepaid taxes. After adjusting prepaid taxes, he claimed a refund of 20,000. Now he wants to furnish an updated return on 31st March 2024, resulting in net tax payable of rupees 10,000, right? So in this particular case, he wants to furnish updated return and he will be declaring some additional income on account of which the claim of refund will get converted into net tax payable of 10,000, which is perfectly fine. So he can furnish the updated return till 31st March 2024, which is 2 years from the end of the assessment year 21-22. So he can furnish the updated return. Number 7. In example number 6 above, which we just now discussed, let's assume that assessment proceedings in his case were initiated by the assessing officer on 1st March 2024 and are pending as on 31st March 2024. And he wants to furnish an updated return as we saw earlier on 31st March 2024. So on 31st March 2024, the assessment proceedings are pending because they were initiated on 1st March 2024 and therefore updated return cannot be furnished since assessment proceedings are now pending. So that means Mr. Z can furnish updated return till end of February 2024, because on or after 1st of March 2024 the assessment proceedings will attain the status of pending, and therefore updated return will not be allowed to be furnished. Number 8. In example 6 above, so let's go back to example 6 above that we were discussing, where we said that Mr. Z has furnished a return and then a refund of 20,000 was claimed, and he wanted to furnish updated return, resulting in a net tax payable of rupees 10,000. But now in this example, assume that Mr. Z again wants to file a further updated return on 10th April 2024. So in example 6, we said that he can furnish the updated return till 31st March 2024, and he wanted to furnish it on 31st March 2024, so he furnished the updated return then. And now he again wants to file a further updated return in April, on 10th April 2024, to declare an additional item of income. Can he do so? Updated return cannot be furnished where an updated return has been furnished. This is what we discussed some time back, that updated return cannot be updated again. So this is reason number 1 why, because of which he cannot furnish the updated return once again on 10th April 2024. Second reason is the time limit of 31st March 2024 has also expired. So 10th April 2024 is beyond the time limit of 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year 21-22, and therefore because of this reason also Mr. Z cannot furnish the updated return under 139(8)(a). Last example. CD Private Limited furnished its return for AY 21-22 on the due date, declaring business loss of rupees 10 lakh. Okay, and this loss was carried forward to AY 22-23, which is the next AY. Now it furnished return for AY 22-23, declaring total income of rupees 15 lakh after adjusting brought forward business loss of 10 lakh. So effectively the income for that year was 25 lakh, and after setting off 10 lakh which was brought forward from AY 21-22, CD Private Limited declared a total income of 15 lakh. Okay. Now it wants to furnish an updated return for AY 21-22. That means the first assessment year, in which the loss was incurred of 10 lakh, which was then carried forward to the next AY. Now it wants to furnish an updated return for year 1, that means assessment year 21-22, in order to declare additional business income of 15 lakh. Now what will happen? Updated return can be furnished for assessment year 21-22, that means year 1. As per which the total income will be computed at rupees 5 lakh now. Why? Because earlier there was a loss of 10 lakh which obviously remained unabsorbed, and therefore it had to be carried forward. But now additional income of 15 lakh is being declared. So this loss will be wiped off, because this 10 lakh of loss will get absorbed, will get adjusted against the additional income of 15 lakh, with the result that there will be a total income of rupees 5 lakh now. And consequently the 10 lakh rupees loss which was then earlier carried forward to the next year will now not be required to be carried forward. There will be no loss to be carried forward to year 2. And therefore updated return will need to be furnished for assessment year 22-23 as well. So this is what we discussed in the earlier part of our discussion also, that if a loss has been declared for a year and it has been carried forward, and then an updated return has been filed for year 1, because of which the loss which has been carried forward also needs to be updated for the subsequent years, then the updated return will need to be filed not only for that year 1 but also for those subsequent years which are getting affected. So this was the discussion regarding the basic provisions of 139(8)(a), and I will recommend that you solve BYC questions in the practice book number B25B to B25H, and there are MCQs as well. So you solve these, And if you have any difficulty, if you need any clarification, if you have any questions, do write to me directly or do write to me in the comment box. And in the next video, we will be discussing about the provisions of section 140B, which deals with determination of the tax to be paid at the time of furnishing of the updated return. So till then, good day and all the best to you.